this message is just for the ladies. If you're a guy, just keep scrolling. Do not get married. Do not. If you want partnership, that's fine. If you want to be in a commitment, that is fine. If you want to have children, that's fantastic. Do not get married. It's a trap. All of it's a trap. It is byproduct of a little boy who never had to work for his mother's affection, and therefore he grows up believing that he is deserving of everything that you try to give him in order to get a little bit of that validation back that he gave you in the beginning of the courting phase or the dating phase. Yeah, it never lasts. Do not get married. If you want a diamond ring, ladies, go and buy one for yourself. Your time here on earth is intended for you to channel and to connect to higher consciousness through your divine feminine presence. If you get married, then you end up having all of that attention diverted into taking care of other people aside from yourself. That's the intention behind it, is to get you to not understand and remember why you came into this earth as a divine, superior, feminine being. Patriarchy is dying. The ladies are waking up.
All right.
I'll let you kick this one off. What do you think of what she just said?
To start, I just think that she is delivering such a damaging message. Do not get married is like, we don't like absolutes.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that, of course, to every couple or every person, there's always a loophole or an exception. So I just said I don't like absolutes. So I would not say that everyone is meant to get married, but marriage is absolutely the goal. It should be the goal. Why would you not want to strive to spend your life with another human being? Relationships are one of the most important things in this world. So to listen to her discourage women from marriage, saying that it's going to drain them of their femininity, is just so far from the truth that it's like hard for me to even know where to start,
Yeah. Yeah. So the problem is, it's people like this that display, this rhetoric, and it gives people a false representation of what marriage actually is, because the problem is most people these days don't even understand what marriage actually is. People nowadays think marriage is just you go to the courthouse or you sign your name on a dotted line and that's what marriage is. So they're misunderstanding what marriage actually is. Marriage by definition, and I'm not talking about by definition you look into the Webster or you look into Wikipedia, not that definition. I'm talking about if you actually understand what the true definition is of marriage. It's a woman and a man, and they are joined together in the covenant under God. So that way they will join as one flesh. And it's supposed to have a similar representation of Jesus in the church. That's what marriage actually is. So it's not, just signing your name on a dotted line. It's an actual vow and an oath that you are taking before God. And people don't understand that anymore, which is why you have people like this. You have men, women, across the board who are misunderstanding what the word marriage means nowadays, which is why people aren't getting married anymore, because they don't truly know, what it means anymore. And I think that's the problem. And I think we need to get back to having people understand what marriage actually is, instead of looking at the literal definition of what humans have said the definition of marriage is, because that is not what Jesus said marriage is. So I completely disagree.
Yeah, I think, how do you think that we came to find out what marriage actually is? 'Cause when we got married, we didn't know, and a lot of people go into marriage not knowing. And I think that the gravity of what it actually is and what it actually entails puts a lot of people in distress.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's because, like I said, the hard part is like I said, is we're getting married, but we're getting married because of the paper and because of the rings. Right. You know what I mean? and not like I said, understanding what marriage actually is. And the only possible way you can truly understand what marriage is you have to be able to accept and get closer to Jesus. Because if you don't, it's going to, you're going to have a, tunnel vision and a blind eye to what marriage is actually supposed to be. And I think that is, I can say for both of us, is what has helped us understand what marriage is, actually accepting Jesus completely into our eye, which he has revealed to us what marriage is supposed to be, what marriage is, and what it's going to be, And
What is the purpose of marriage, you think?
what is the purpose? The purpose of marriage, like I said, is to join man and woman together so that they can, bring upon the earth better and better and better. We're supposed to get better as the generations goes on. So the reason that a man needs a woman and a woman needs a man is for multitudes of reasons. It's not just for the cooking and cleaning on the woman's side, and it's not just for the provision and the protection of the man on the man's side. It's combining the woman's brain and the male's brain and making it one. Where I'm weak, you're strong. Where you're weak, I'm strong. And that's the reason that
It's complementary.
It's a complementary thing. And if you don't have both of them, you're not going to be able to be at full strength, For example.
So would you say that like people who are not married are not at full strength?
It would be very hard to say you're at full strength if you're by yourself, because you can't be at full strength if you're missing the piece that you were created to have. Well,
I think okay, so you're missing a piece that you're created to have, but don't you think that a lot of people would say that God says not everybody will be married? So are the people who are not destined to be married?
Yeah, what I'm saying is, even if you're not married, right? The most important things in this world is what? Relationships. Exactly. And that's not just in marriage, right? If you go take that vow and you become married, right? Then you have to understand what marriage is. But let's say, for example, if you never get married, right? Does that mean because I'm not married, I should not learn how to understand other people in the world? No, it means even if you're not married, you as a woman should still learn how to find the strengths in men, and you should learn how to better yourself as a woman and vice versa as a man. If I'm a man and I never had got married, I should still be looking to strengthen my relationships with the opposite sex, because it creates a better environment across the board. Mm-hmm. For example, let's say you live in a neighborhood, right? You live in a neighborhood and there's a community, and you have 10 people that live in that community. And let's say five of those people in that neighborhood are married, and 5 of those people in that neighborhood are not married, right? That's still a community, right?
Yeah.
And in that community, if you're trying to grow that person who's not married, would you be okay with them going in that community and, burning your house down just because you're married? Or vice versa? We want to kick you out of our community because you're not married. No. So you have to still understand each other. You still have to grow. We have to work with people who are married and people who are not married. We have to work with people who are different colors and who are not different colors. You know what I mean? So it's not just about marriage, but in particular, we were talking about marriage because she was speaking about not getting married. But the most important thing is relationship in general,
And I find that to one of her points, she was saying that marriage will kind of drain you of your femininity, or I don't know if that's how she put it specifically, but what I'll say is through marriage, I found the most feminine version of myself. I think that prior to, I was a bit lost. I think marriage really anchored me. It really gave me not only purpose, but it helped me mature into a woman that wasn't selfish. And I think selfishness is an innate characteristic of women in general. I think that we can be very selfish because the calling on our life is not to serve in the same way men do. And when I had children and I you know, when I got married and I had children, I started to realize how much of my life was never considerate of any other person other than myself. And now, at first it felt like such a sacrificial thing. It felt like something that was like, when will I get time to myself? Or it was this separation in my mind of like me and then my family. And God really unified those two things in my mind to help me to understand that my family is who I am. And I identify with that. And I feel like a lot of women want to separate themselves from that. They want to have an identity outside of their family. And I can understand the concept of that, but I don't really think that we are like measuring the fact that we've created something beautiful. Me and Malik have created a beautiful family, which is mine. I have an ownership. It's like ownership of being attached to something and owning something like a family is something that I don't think anything in the world,
you can't buy.
Yeah, nothing in the world compares to it.
Yes.
And so to try to separate myself from that was so hard because it felt like I was being pulled like in two different directions. And then,
But would you say, because to her point, would you say that marriage is draining?
it can be.
Yeah.
Marriage can
Realistically,
be draining.
yeah.
Marriage can be draining.
Realistically, it can be.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Realistically, it can be. But that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. You know what I mean? And I think that's what people are not understanding and not talking about is they say, you know, sometimes I get tired. You know, sometimes I get sleepy. Sometimes I get mad. Sometimes
I get snappy.
Yeah,
sometimes I get irritated. Sometimes I got an attitude.
Sometimes I want to just come home from work and say, leave me alone. I was at work all day, you know? But it doesn't mean that these are draining, like literally in the sense of like, I'm tired of seeing you type of thing, you know? It doesn't mean that. It just means that, you know, today I had a hard day or today I had a bad day. And that just means when I wake up in the morning, I get to do it again, you know? And I think that that's what people are not talking about. People are not talking about, they're only talking about the negatives and not focused on the positives. I think people focus too much on pointing out and pointing the fingers at how much bad there is. And, you know, and me, you know, I told you this before. I don't believe in focusing on people's weaknesses.
Yeah.
They're your weaknesses for a reason. I believe in people should focus, especially if you're married, I believe that you should focus on 90% of your partner's strengths and 10% on their weaknesses. Because when you're always pointing out their weaknesses, you're going to cause a conflict. You're going to cause the other partner to be flustered. You're going to cause the other partner to get irritated.
It feels like nitpicking.
Yeah, it's nitpicking. You know, it could become bickering, you know, and it can cause a lot of arguments.
And what do you say to people who say, like, y'all are young and married? Because, you know, most of these conversations are only destined for people who have been married for 25 years. Or plus, you know, like when you see married couples, I'm not saying they're the only people in the space, but I feel like sometimes only voices of like hyper longevity are, you know, valued. Yeah,
people, you know, when you get gray hair, you get wiser type of thing, right?
Well, I got some. I got a couple.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, you know, the older you get does mean you can get wiser, but it doesn't always necessarily just because you're older means you're wiser, right? I think you become wise once you start to accept truth. Yeah. You know, doesn't matter how old you are, you know, if you're starting to visualize, you know, in your workspace or your relationships, you know, with your children or your husband or your wife, and you start to sit back and look at the truth within yourself, that's when I believe you start to get wise. So you could do that. You could be 20 years old, and if you start to look in the mirror and say, I need to accept this truth, then I believe you're starting to become wise. Doesn't matter your age.
I also think that a level of intelligence is less based off of academics or any type of, you know, structural study thing. Yeah, degree. I think it's based more on, I think for me, the most intelligent people in the world are people who understand that they can change their lives into whatever it is they desire, and then they go about doing that and succeed at it. those are very intelligent people, because I don't think that we really understand the power we have. And so for me and Malik, it might sound simple, but we've decided to be happy. We are happy, but happiness is a decision. Yeah. I could choose to be unhappy or nagging or angry or not easily satisfied just because I want to be, you know? Yeah. So when you hear people talk about marriage and you hear this generalization of how boring it is, how sexless it is, how, draining, tiring, you know, you hear about these things, but you have to understand that the people who are giving these perspectives of their marriage are things that they've decided within their marriage.
And
you know what I'm saying?
I think to piggyback off of that, I think it's a decision to, like I said, point out the negatives instead of making the decision to point out the positives. Right. You know, because I mean, no matter what you do in life, there's always going to be pros and cons, right? And I think it's better to try to focus on the pros out of life instead of focusing on the negatives of life. Because, you know, you can wake up every day and find something negative. Oh, I don't want to go to work today, but I can make money, you know?
I don't want to watch these kids today. I don't want to be nice to you today.
Yeah, it's always something that you can point out that's negative. But that's the reason it's causing a strain on marriages, is because you're not focusing enough on the positives.
Right.
You know, and you know, there's going to be hard times, there's going to be tough days, but think about why it was positive to marry this person, or why it was positive that you met this person, or why it was positive you had these kids, instead of focusing on why did I do this to myself? Why did I not make this decision? You know, you're going to beat yourself up, and you're never going to be able to move forward if you continue to beat yourself up. So I think the best thing to do is focus on the positives, you know. And like I said, from this video, I disagree completely on the fact that she's saying marriage is draining, don't get married. I say anybody who can and is willing.
Well, we just said marriage is draining.
Huh?
We just said marriage is draining.
No, I'm not saying that it's not draining. I'm talking about to the extent of what she's truly saying, because she's saying it's so draining that you shouldn't do it.
Yeah,
and I don't agree with that.
In simple terms, marriage is bad. It's horrible. It's something that it's basically sacrificial. You're sacrificing yourself for something else, and it's not.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
No, I was saying like,
that's what she said.
That's what I'm saying. Like I was saying like, I disagree with it in the heaviness of it.
She's making the headline of marriage equals bad.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, and it's not. Marriage equals love, which is going to come with complexity.
Right. Oh, you see what I'm saying? That's good.
Marriage is love, which is complexity. And where comes complexity comes responsibility.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. And I think that a lot of people are very surface level sometimes. And I think that we focus so much on things that don't matter in the long run. Yeah. And so we find ourselves separating quickly or at the first chance we get, based on being so fragile and not being able to carry the weight of or make a decision between what is something that is very severe, very serious, and deserves like a long talk, counseling, this and that, right? Yeah, but we're going to counseling and having 3-hour conversations with our spouses about taking out the trash.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Or something as simple like I don't think that therapy is a bad thing, right? Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a bad thing. But I think a lot of times people go to therapy because they're too afraid to talk to their partner about the truth, right? It could have, when y'all go to the therapist, you're talking to the therapist
to mediate, y'all.
Yeah, to mediate, because y'all can't have a civil conversation with each other in your own household, you know? And I think that's a big problem. If you can't sit in front of your spouse and have a real conversation without, you know, cussing at each other, getting really loud, you know, and basically almost to the point where you guys are embarrassing yourselves to each other, you can't do that. That's a problem. And your guys, you know, sometimes I feel like even people use therapy as a cop-out to say, well, now I can say this because you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of this person, do you? You know? And so I think we need to just, you know, get back to the root of just have a conversation, you know, even if it's hard at first, just say, hey, let's have a quick conversation real quick.
I think that some of our biggest breakthroughs and some of like the most difficult things that we've dealt with within our marriage, I think have blossomed from the hard conversations.
Yeah. I can agree
Like
to that.
if you're avoiding the hard conversations,
Yeah.
you're not growing.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't only apply to marriage. That's life.
Yeah. That's anything. Yeah. The stuff that's hard is the stuff that makes you grow.
Yeah.
If it's easy, you're gonna be able to do it tenfold, and you're never gonna want to grow from it. You know.
Which makes sense why a lot of people have a hard time communicating with another person, because if I'm easily triggered, if I have trauma, if I have issues within myself, and then you tap that and I'm like, oh, that's sore, and you tap it again and I'm like, oh, that hurts.
Yeah.
Like that subject is a sensitive subject, but I think that it's when you're married, it's kind of on your partner to figure out how to touch that sore spot in a way that still feels loving.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you're sore somewhere and I punch you in it, you know what I'm saying? And you're going to be like, hold on now. Dang, I just told you it was sore.
Yeah.
But if I say, let me just massage it a little bit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's still going to hurt
Yeah.
because of the pressure. But I'm like trying to help you heal.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And I think that we've really healed each other a lot.
Yeah.
Within tough conversations and within
And I can say,
love you after,
Yeah.
even after, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I can say that's, like I said before at the beginning, that's because we had a realization that my strengths can improve your weaknesses.
Right.
And your strengths can improve my weaknesses.
Yeah.
You know, and having those tough conversations, you start to realize, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's the stuff I suck at. She's telling me, hey, I can help you get better at the stuff you suck at by using me. Mm-hmm. And vice versa. The stuff I'm good at, I can tell you, hey, you're not good at this. Use me in the stuff that you're not good at. Mm-hmm. And it makes it easier. But if you don't have those conversations, you don't realize, oh, that's what this conversation really is.
It's ego.
You know what I mean?
It's ego. You know, and I'm not saying that, by no means am I saying that women don't have ego, because I think it's ego and pride on both parts. Mm-hmm. But what I will say is sometimes I find that men, that's a sensitive spot. Like if it's anything that affects male ego, it's like, I think it's sometimes difficult for women to work around a little bit, because it's like, how do I bring this to him without emasculating him or without disrespecting him? And so now I think that we've worked past that and tried to figure out how to speak to one another in a very respectful way that is productive.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. But yeah, overall, marriage is not bad. It's an amazing thing. So please don't take it from both of us.
Yeah, don't let the world discourage you from what God has for you.
Yeah. Go get married.
And we'll see you guys in the next one.